Hi guys, Mike Volkin here with Freelancer Masterclass. I put together a top 10 list of things you should really know if you want to be a successful freelancer and you're just starting out. So, first thing I want you to know is don't compete on price. Okay, even if you're new and you don't even know what you're going to be charging yet, the last thing you should be doing is competing on price. Or you're rarely going to win because there's always somebody going to be cheaper than you. And believe me, you don't want to work for the cheapest rate because you won't be a full-time freelancer. And that's the goal, is to be a full-time freelancer because it's the best job in the world. So what I want you to do to determine your freelancer rate is I want you to drop 3 zeros. Okay? So take your hour or take your yearly goal. Let's say it's $100,000. That seems to be the magic salary number that people like to say, oh, I made 6 figures. That's $100,000 a year. Drop 3 zeros from that number, and that becomes 100, right? So that should be your hourly rate. That's a general rule. That will get you 80% of the way there, and that's a good rule of thumb if you want to know what you should charge as your hourly rate. All things considered, like your expenses are not outlandish and all that other stuff. Okay, so keep that in mind. Drop 3 zeros to determine what your hourly rate should be. Now, also, don't worry about your competition. I want you to learn from them. So do a reverse search. What I want you to do is go to Upwork, where there's a lot of freelancers, right? And I want you to essentially look for yourself. Open up a company account, which you should have anyway. That's one of the tips coming up on my list here, is to open up an LLC. So you should have a company account because eventually as you scale, you're going to want to hire freelancers. But I want you to do a reverse search and look for yourself. So if you are a social media specialist, if you're a designer, if you're a writer, look for that under the search for freelancers. And then find out what other people are charging. And then not just that, but look at what they're saying in their title. Look at what they're saying in their description. So, for example, if you want to charge, and believe me, I just said don't chase your competition for price, but I want you to know if you want to charge $100 an hour and all your competition, which has the same experience as you, is charging $40 an hour, then you have something you have to add in terms of value. I don't want you to go down to $40 an hour if that's not what you want to work for. But at the same time, I want you to understand what they're saying to their prospects who are reading their Upwork profile, how they're exuding themselves, what brand are they putting forth, who are they trying to target. Use that as inspiration to build your own profile, okay? So don't worry about your competition. I want you to use them as inspiration. See what they're saying, see what they're exuding in their Upwork profile. And you can do that on any platform. Upwork, Fiverr, Freelancer.com, Guru, whatever. Okay. The third tip I have for you is don't be a generalist, okay? If you target everyone, you're going to get no one. That's a general saying in the marketing niche. So I'm a marketing strategist, as you may know from following me on social media. That is how I make my living, and I have a very specific niche I target, okay? So you should too, because as you develop in your career, you become an expert in one industry or one even type of client that you service. The more that you attract those types of people, the more value you will have because you'll have that much more experience in that area, okay? So don't be a generalist, or you'll never be able to charge your rates to where you want it to be as you become a more senior freelancer, okay? All things considered, let's say there are 2 freelancers, you and someone else going after the same client who happens to be in the auto industry. You're a generalist, and you're a freelance writer that just writes blogs for anyone and everyone. And then the other person you're interviewing is a freelance writer that has specific experience in the auto industry. Who do you think they're going to pick right off the bat? Not only that, but even if the auto blogger is more expensive, they're going to go to that person because they have experience in that industry. Get it? Okay. Number 4. Always be prospecting, even in good times. Freelancing is about good times and bad times. Even for someone like me who's been freelancing for well over a decade, there's always going to be dry spells. You know, where the economy might go down a little bit. Your industry, your niche might have seasonal variations to it. If you're an e-commerce expert, for example, the 4th quarter is very hot, and you might be getting a lot of clients. The 1st quarter might be dead for you. So I want you to always be prospecting for clients because you always want some in the queue, okay? Tip number 5, write down common objections you may hear, like, can you work for less? Or do you have experience with this? too many freelancers that I hire, and I hire dozens of them a year, if not over 100, I seem to always be hiring a freelancer, and I do not like to hear them stumble on easy questions. And I'll ask them very targeted questions sometimes, and you should expect that prospects will do that to you, not to try to trick you, but they want to know if you know your stuff. So you should have what we call in Freelancer Masterclass is a unique selling proposition, value proposition, all that marketing communication that goes into communicating to a client, you should have ready. And if you don't have them memorized, you should have them out in front of you on a piece of paper, okay? So get those common objections down. Okay, number 6 tip, what you should look for when you're freelancing, especially starting out to be successful. Get an LLC and a bookkeeper, okay? 2 tips in 1, okay? You might think, Mike, I don't have any outgoing, I can't have any outgoing expenses right now. I just quit my job. I need to focus on incoming work before I focus on sending money out. You need a bookkeeper, okay? They're only a few bucks a month, okay? You can search your Yelp, if somebody local, you can go to bench.com to get a bookkeeper. Should be relatively cheap, and it will allow you to focus on the highest and best use of your time. You don't want to be fiddling around with learning QuickBooks when you should be prospecting for clients and bringing in money, okay? And also an LLC, for so many reasons, get an LLC, but it won't be, you won't spend a month trying to figure out what your numbers mean tax time, what's a personal write-off or a business write-off versus what's not. So instead of fumbling around with all that, not to mention keeping your business assets and liabilities separate than your personal for potential lawsuit reasons, you should have an LLC to protect you from that. It's called a corporate veil. And now there are things like an S Corp and an LLP and a C Corp, but really that's a topic for another video. To keep it simple, if you're just starting out as a freelancer and you have little to no income and you're just trying to ramp up your business, an LLC is the easiest thing to open. Go to LegalZoom or any other comparison site like that, and there's lots of them that are comparable to LegalZoom. LLC, super easy to start. A couple pieces of paper and a check. Okay. Work harder on keeping clients that you love than finding new ones. So many new freelancers make the devastating mistake of, I'm just going to prospect for new clients all the time, and they ignore servicing their existing ones. So instead of keeping a good client for 10 months as opposed to getting rid of them by accident because you serviced them poorly after 2 months, you have that gap there of 8 extra months of income you would have from a client you liked. So really focus on processes and keeping a client. For me, I use teamwork.com. That helps me maintain my client work easier, helps me stay under budget and on track and deliver things on due dates. You can use any project management platform you like Asana or Trello, but it's 19 times harder to find a new client than it is an existing one. That's an actual study that was done, I believe, by Marketing Sherpa for the consulting and freelancing space a few years ago. So think about if you want to spend your time doing something that's 19 times harder than you would otherwise, okay? So focus on keeping existing clients. Tip number 8, don't be a slave to responding to clients. I talked about this in Freelancer Masterclass. So many freelancers focus on responding right away. They're always on their emails. And, oh, I got to get back to this client. I'm telling you, don't do that, because then you're a slave on Saturday and Sunday mornings. You're a slave on Friday evenings when you should be out having fun or spending time with your family. Okay, you set your scope early with your communications with your client, saying, I respond to email 3 times a day. Put it this way, if you respond every time that somebody emails you right away, then that becomes your status quo. And then all of a sudden, after 3 or 4 months of work, when you stop responding so fast, you become less effective to your client. Even though you might be more effective compared to other freelancers, you are less effective than your status quo when you first started, and that becomes, you start to be seen as a negative to your client. So I tell my clients, listen, I respond to emails first thing in the morning, I clear my inbox, sometime around midday, and before I go to, before I end for the work day, okay? So you should do the same. Set expectations early. This is how I work, this is how you can reach me, that kind of thing. I tell clients, don't ever Skype me. I'm not on Skype. Every time I log into Skype, I'll get emails from people, other freelancers wanting to message me. I'm not on Skype. Then I'd have to get on WhatsApp and all these other programs, and I got messages. I have to check my email, check my voicemail, check my text, check my Skype, check my this, check my that. It's like, you know what? I tell them right early, I respond best to emails. I tell them I do not text for business reasons, and you should do. We talk about that at Freelancer Masterclass, all the reasons why you shouldn't text with a client. But set your expectations early, your communication expectations, okay? And the last tip I have for you is to have an extremely clear scope of work before starting out. I want you to set your revision counts, like if you're a designer or a web developer, how many revisions are you going to do with your client before you consider the project closed? What are your deadlines? Do they want you to work and deliver projects 2 months before you feel comfortable? All right, you have to go through your scope of work, get it finalized, then go through it all again. You have to think about it every which way, because once that scope of work is signed and you send an invoice for the first 50% of your payment, which you should always do, if not 100% up front, you are locked into that scope of work. And anything the client wants to do outside of that scope of work, you can charge extra for, and you should charge extra for. Because as a freelancer, your time is your money. So I hope you enjoyed those 10 tips. There's a lot there. Post a comment below. I get a lot of inspiration from my future videos on what you guys are looking for in terms of freelancer advice. So post a comment below this video and let me know what kind of content you'd like me to create in the future. Good luck.